Everybody, it is JT Sports. I'm back to you guys with another video. This video, I'm here with my Notre Dame versus Alabama college football playoff semifinals preview and prediction. Going to be giving you guys my thoughts and my prediction on this game. So we have Notre Dame taking on Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Now the Rose Bowl is normally played in Pasadena, California. But with the COVID-19 restrictions and everything that's going on over there, they had to move the game to Texas. The last time we saw Notre Dame, they got pounded by Clemson in the ACC championship game 34-10. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I was really surprised about how Notre Dame lost that game. Now, I'm not surprised that Notre Dame lost because I expected Notre Dame to lose that game. But I did not expect Notre Dame to lose that game the way they did. I expected a competitive football game. And I may sound crazy for saying that, but I believe that Notre Dame is still one of the best teams in college football. Now, let me reiterate this. I am not a Notre Dame fan. Let me say that one more time for you guys watching. I am not a Notre Dame fan. And I'm not an Alabama fan. I am giving you guys a neutral perspective about how I feel about both of these teams heading into this football game. And when you look at Notre Dame is just way too good of a team to perform the way they did against Clemson. According to 24/7's Team Talent Composite Rankings, Notre Dame has the 8th best team in America. Clemson has the 4th best team in America. And listen, I understand that Clemson has Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence didn't play in the first matchup. They had a couple of other guys out as well. But even then, I felt like Notre Dame should have put up a way better fight than what they did. I felt like that game should have went the way that Northwestern and Ohio State went in the Big Ten championship game. We knew that Ohio State was most likely going to win that game. But we knew that Northwestern was going to give Ohio State a competitive football game. And that's how that game went. Northwestern was in that game all the way into the fourth quarter where Ohio State was able to finally pull away. That's what I was expecting. I was not expecting a blowout, believe it or not. I knew that Clemson would probably win this game and win it comfortably, but I wasn't expecting them to 34-10 Notre Dame. For Notre Dame to have a chance of winning this game, they need for Ian Book to play like a superstar. Let me tell you guys something. Alabama is one of the most talented teams in America. Okay? They have one of the best rosters in all of America. Florida, who is one spot above Notre Dame in Team Talent Composite Rankings, is 7th. They have the 7th most talented team in America. And yet, Alabama beat Florida 52-46. So, if Florida can put a competitive game on the field for Alabama, then I believe that Notre Dame should be able to do the same. I feel like Notre Dame really underperformed against Clemson. That team that I watched for the whole entire season is way better than what I saw in the ACC championship game. But Ian Book, in specific, if Notre Dame was to have a chance in this God-loving earth of pulling off this 19.5 point upset against Alabama, Ian Book needs to put on his Superman cape. He needs to be Superman in this game for Notre Dame to win. Because when you look at the college football playoffs, ever since this college football playoffs started a couple of years ago, think about the quarterbacks who have competed in this game. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray. You have guys like Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield. Notice something about all those quarterbacks? All those quarterbacks were transcendent level talents. All those quarterbacks are now in the NFL. The majority of the quarterbacks who have participated in the college football playoffs have been drafted in the either round 1 or round 2 of the NFL draft. You see, people have to understand something. College football has changed. College football is not what it was in 2012, 2011, and 2010 when you can win a national championship with an average to above average quarterback and have a great run game and rely on your defense. Now, ever since Deshaun Watson came along and he led Clemson to that national championship, he kind of changed college football because now you have to have a superstar quarterback and an amazing offense if you want to have a shot to compete for a national championship. Wisconsin and Georgia are both great programs, but there's a reason why neither one of those teams have won a national championship. It's because the style of football is outdated. Why do you think Georgia went out of their way to get a new offensive coordinator and tried to change the offensive philosophy? Because they know if they want to have a shot at competing with Alabama, if they want to have a chance to win a national championship, that their offense has to be geared to this day and age of college football. There is a reason why the finalists for the Heisman Trophy include 3 quarterbacks and 1 wide receiver. That should tell you everything that you need to know about how the college football game has transformed and how it has changed. Everybody always asks, why does a quarterback always win a Heisman Trophy? Because having a superstar quarterback in college football means a lot. You can have a bad coach, but if you have a great quarterback, he can carry that coach. Look at Clay Helton. Look at Keenan Slovis for USC. A better example, look at what Johnny Manziel did with Kevin Sumlin in Texas A&M. We saw once Johnny Manziel left Texas A&M, what happened to Kevin Sumlin? He got fired by A&M. He got fired just recently by Arizona. He's not a good coach. He has been exposed. So if you have a superstar level quarterback, and even if you have an average to above average coach, that shows you how important it is to have a great quarterback and how much a superstar quarterback matters in this day and age of college football. And you look at the current quarterbacks who are going to be competing in this year's college football playoffs. You have Matt Jones, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. All 3 of those quarterbacks are expected to be drafted in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Heck, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are both expected to be the first 2 quarterbacks taken off the board come draft time. Meanwhile, you have Ian Book. Where does Ian Book lie in that hierarchy? Because he's not on the level of any of these quarterbacks. He's projected to be like a 3rd, 4th round pick. Ian Book is what we call a game manager. That's what a lot of you guys try to label Mac Jones before the season began. So when you look at Ian Book, he has to elevate his play to the level of the current quarterbacks that are in the college football playoffs right now. Because at the end of the day, if Notre Dame is going to win this game, I promise you, it's not going to be because they ran the ball 50 times down Alabama's throat. It's going to be because Ian Book played like a superstar, which is what is required when you're on this stage. The first time Notre Dame faced Clemson, they won. Ian Book in that game was 22 of 39 for 310 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 67 rushing yards. Now, I know the stat line still might not be all that impressive, the 1 touchdown, 67 rushing yards, but if you watch that game, Ian Book looked like an entirely different quarterback than what we've seen out of Ian Book in the last couple of years. He looked like he was just on a different stratosphere. He looked like he was a superstar that night. Like he made play after play after play for Notre Dame. Now in the second go around against Clemson, he was 20 of 28 for 219 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and he had negative rushing yards. So for Ian Book to give Notre Dame a chance to win this game, he has to play like a superstar. He has to play like he is the best quarterback on the field. And Notre Dame's offensive line is way too good to perform the way they did in this game, the way they did against Clemson. Notre Dame is supposed to be offensive line you, either them or Wisconsin. Notre Dame is one of the best programs in college football historically when it comes to producing NFL level talent on the offensive line. They have 2 offensive linemen that are going to be playing this game that are projected to go really high in the NFL draft come May or April, whenever the draft takes place. You got Liam Eichenberg. Hopefully I pronounced his name right. He's supposed to be like a late 1st round pick, early 2nd round pick. You got Tommy Kramer, who is supposed to be like a day 2, day 3 pick. He could go anywhere between round 2 and round 4. So you have 2 high caliber NFL offensive linemen on your team. You also have a really good offensive line as well. You also have one of the best offensive lines in college football. I didn't see that last week the last couple of weeks against Clemson. I saw a Clemson team that dominated Notre Dame up front, which is something that definitely should not happen when you look at what Notre Dame produces when it comes to NFL level talent up front on the offensive line. And you look at Alabama, their defensive line has played really good, but their defense is not all that great. If you ask me, Alabama has some flaws. Now, is Notre Dame going to be able to exploit those flaws in this game? They need to. They have to. They want to have a chance. Listen, against Florida, Florida came out a little bit flat. But in the second half, Florida got some stops. That offense got rolling. And the game ended up being really close. So you look at Notre Dame, with how good this offensive line is, with the NFL level talent that they have in this offensive line, they should be able to come out here and be able to give Notre Dame and Ian Book this offense some time to drop back and throw the football, and they should have a successful day running the football on Alabama. The first time Notre Dame played Clemson, they were running the ball like a madman. Second go around, they were averaging 1.8 yards per carry. That's unacceptable. If Notre Dame's going to win this game, Ian Book has to be a superstar. He's going to have to account for 80 to about 85% of the offense. But the running game is going to have to be there as well to keep Alabama off balance. So for Notre Dame, you don't really have that great of a receiving core. But you do have one of the best tight end groups in all of college football. You utilize 5 tight ends. You have 3 tight ends that you use for run blocking, and you have 2 tight ends that you use in passing formations. So when you look at Notre Dame has a matchup that they could exploit. Dylan Moses really disappointed me with his performance against Florida in the SEC championship game. He got ate up by Kyle Pitts. He wasn't great in coverage. He just didn't really have that great of a game. And this is a guy who is supposed to be one of the best linebackers in college football. He really struggled. You look at Alabama, they're really good up front. But I believe that Notre Dame's offensive line should not be to the point that they just get destroyed and beat down by Alabama's defensive line. I know Alabama has a lot of talented guys on that defensive line, but Notre Dame's offensive line is too good to get beat down by Alabama's D-line. And I know you Alabama fans are going to get mad and upset with me saying that, but I think that is the honest truth. Notre Dame has one of the best offensive lines in college football. No way they should perform the way they did against Clemson. That was just a bad team performance all around. Another thing that Alabama has on Notre Dame is that they have Devontae Smith. I have stated several times that Devontae Smith, if he does not win the Heisman Trophy this year, it will be a doggone shame, and it will be an embarrassment in college football if they give Mac Jones the Heisman Trophy over Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith has been the best wide receiver in college football since Michael Crabtree. Michael Crabtree was an incredible wide receiver on the college level. Nobody really talks about him. Really underrated. So you look at Notre Dame and you look at this secondary, their secondary isn't all that great. This front seven that they have, their linebackers, their defensive line, it's really good. But their secondary is the weak link of this defense. And when you face Alabama, they're going to try to throw the ball. And they're going to try to throw the ball until you show that you can stop it. So for Alabama, you don't really get put in third down situations all that often because you're so dominant on first down and second down that when it comes to third down, you don't really see third down all that often. So you look at Notre Dame, defensively, you need to be able to win early on first and second down, force Alabama to get down some third down situations. Now, I understand that Alabama is a really good offense. They're the best offense in college football, in my opinion. But you give yourself a better chance of getting a stop on third down if you're able to get the third down versus just allowing Alabama to get 7-8 yards consistently on first and second down, which is what Alabama has done to the majority of the teams that they have faced this season. Another thing that Notre Dame needs is they need turnovers. I know it sounds cliche, but it has to happen. I don't think Notre Dame's defense is going to be good enough that they can just get a stop every single drive on Alabama. They're going to have to get a stop, and they're going to need some additional assistance by forcing a turnover to as well getting the ball back to their offense. So for Notre Dame overall, I think Notre Dame should compete in this game. And Brian Kelly, if Notre Dame gets blown out in this game, I'm going to be really disappointed in Brian Kelly. A lot of people can make all the excuses in the world for Notre Dame saying that, well, JT, they don't have the talent. All the players that they recruit have to be academically accepted into the university and things like that. Listen, let me tell you guys something. Every time Notre Dame gets in big games, they come up small. When you get to the big stage, everybody is supposed to be playing their best football. Everybody should be playing better than what they are. Literally. We've seen legends made in the college football playoffs. Remind you that Baker Mayfield at one point was supposed to be a second-round pick. He got to the college football playoffs. He elevated his play. He competed with some of the best teams, some of the best quarterbacks in America. He got drafted number 1 overall. So you got to think about something. It doesn't matter how good you are, how good you think you are. When you're in the big game on the big stage with everybody watching with a chance to compete for the college football playoffs, I don't care if Ian Book is an average to above average quarterback. I don't care if Ian Book isn't as talented as Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Let me tell you guys something. On the biggest stage with a national championship at stake, you better play like one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I don't care if you have it all year. Your play should be elevated. Everybody should be playing better than what they are on this stage. This is what separates the above average players from the great players, because the great players are able to elevate their play in big moments and big games. Eli Manning, for example, was always regarded as an above average quarterback. He was only a top 10 quarterback maybe once or twice in his career. But what separates Eli Manning, what makes Eli Manning a future Hall of Famer, is the fact that Eli Manning is one of the best playoff performers in NFL history. He was never a regular season quarterback. His brother was. But what separated Eli from Peyton Manning was a great regular season performer, but when it came playoff time, Peyton Manning wasn't all that great. Eli Manning, on the other hand, elevated his play in big games and big moments in the playoffs. Legends are made in the playoffs. You look at Ian Book right now, a lot of you guys consider Ian Book to be average to above average. Well, if Notre Dame was to have a chance to win this game, he needs to be elite. He needs to be on the same level as Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. Now for Alabama, you're coming into this game, we don't have to worry about Alabama playing down to Notre Dame. Alabama is always a pretty laser-focused team. You got Mac Jones, you got Najee Harris, you got Devontae Smith. You have 3 of the best players in college football. You saw what Najee Harris did against Florida. A lot of people, just alone from that performance, wanted to put him as a candidate to be one of the finalists for the Heisman Trophy. So you look at Alabama, you have 3 of the best players in America. You have a Notre Dame team that is really good defensively when it comes to the front seven. They're really fast, they're really athletic. They can get out to the edges, they can fill the gaps really fast. But their secondary isn't as good as the rest of the defense is. So you look at Mac Jones, okay, you should be able to do what you have done all year. I don't think Notre Dame is going to waste any time trying to, play one-on-one coverage with Devontae Smith, because they don't have any defender on that team in that secondary that's capable of even sticking with Devontae Smith for even 3 minutes. So you look at Alabama, you should be able to come in here and you should be able to run your offense. My concern with Alabama in this game is most definitely not their offense. My concern is going to be that defense. That defense got shredded for 46 points against Florida. And everybody was thinking that Alabama just had this amazing turnaround on defense. I said, let's wait before we judge Alabama. Let's wait and see what they do against Florida. If Alabama's defense could hold Florida to under 30 points, I think this game will be a blowout. I really do. I think that if that was the case, Alabama will come into this game and Notre Dame will put up a 0 on the scoreboard. But if Notre Dame plays up to the level that they're capable of, I think that this game should be a pretty hard-fought game for the first 2 quarters. If you're Notre Dame, you just need to make sure that by the time you get to halftime, that it's not 35-0 by then. You need to make sure that when you go into halftime, that you never go into halftime down more than 10. I think 10 points is the threshold of what you want this game to be when you go into halftime. If you ask Brian Kelly, how would he be comfortable going into halftime with? I'm pretty sure he would tell you, if you would ask Brian Kelly, hey, would you be okay being down to Alabama by only 10 points at halftime? I think he would tell you, hell yeah. Hell yeah, he'll be okay only being down 10 in halftime against Alabama, because Notre Dame still has a shot to win the game. But if you're down 28-0, you can't run any of your offense. You can't run the football. You have no choice but just to air it out 50 times with Ian Book. So if you're Notre Dame, if you go into halftime only down 10, you can still run your offense. Meanwhile, if you're down 28-0, you can't really run your offense. You can't be balanced. You can't try to run the football. You can't use those 3 tight end sets. Now you're going to have to go 3-4 wide, including having some of your pass catching tight ends on the field. You're going to have to air it out against Alabama. I don't think that votes well for Notre Dame. So if you're Notre Dame, you need to make sure that you keep this game within reach at all times. If you can go into halftime for 10-point lead, and then you position yourself in the fourth quarter when you're only down by a touchdown or you're only down by 10 points, you put yourself in striking distance to have an attempt at pulling off the upset. But if you allow Alabama to just roster you to death, which they really shouldn't, because even though they do have the first or second best roster in college football, Notre Dame still has one of the best rosters, a top 10 roster in America at that. So for Notre Dame, there is a lot of things that have to go right. But I think the most important things is that Brian Kelly has to be able to make sure that he doesn't, find himself getting out-coached to death by Nick Saban. When it comes time to play elite teams against some of the best coaches in the game, Brian Kelly comes out short. And Notre Dame fans can make all the excuses that you want to for Brian Kelly, but at the end of the day, when big games come up, Notre Dame comes up too small, too many times, too often. So in this game, I'm going to take Alabama with the victory. I'm not really expecting a crazy upset. Maybe Notre Dame can pull off a Northwestern like what Northwestern did against Ohio State. Everybody expected Ohio State to just run Northwestern out the building, and they gave Northwestern a pretty competitive football game. If Notre Dame can keep this game within 10 heading into halftime, and they can make sure going in the fourth quarter that they're not down by 3 or 4 several scores, you have a good chance to win this game. Not a great chance, but you have a pretty decent chance. Alabama has an 8% chance to win this game. If you're Notre Dame heading into the fourth and you're only down by a couple of points, you're only down by 10 points, then you have a better than an 8% chance of losing this game. You should at least be in a position, if you're only down 10 by Alabama in the full quarter, that you have a chance to win this game by at least 40 to 30%. So for Alabama, this is the best team in college football in my opinion. Their defense still isn't complete. This just isn't a complete team like everybody thinks that they are. But this team is the most talented team in college football. Top to bottom. Not just great NFL players, but you got great college football players. You have what should be the potential Heisman Trophy winner wide receiver Devontae Smith. You got Mac Jones. You got Najee Harris. You got one of the best offensive lines, and you got the best offensive line in college football. And Notre Dame, what do you have? Well, you do have your pride. For all of the seniors who are watching this game, who are going to be participating in this game, do you really want your last game to be a blowout to Alabama? Do you really want your last game in a Notre Dame Fighting Irish uniform, playing under head coach Brian Kelly, to be known as a blowout against Alabama? Is that really how you want to go out? Are you going to go out fighting and swinging? Or are you going to go out getting destroyed and getting your manhood taken away like you did against Clemson? Because that's what I saw against Clemson. I saw a Notre Dame team that just looked destroyed. They looked like they knew they couldn't compete with Clemson. Against Alabama, I want to see Notre Dame have some fight. I don't. If Northwestern can give Ohio State a fight, then I'm pretty sure Notre Dame should be able to give Alabama a fight. If Florida can give Alabama a competitive game, especially knowing that they're only one spot above you in the team 24/7 team talent composite ranking, then Notre Dame is no excuse of why you should come out here and just get blown out to shreds by Alabama. Notre Dame needs to give Alabama a competitive football game, which they are capable of doing. This is a team that deserves to be in the college football playoffs. For all you guys that want to argue for Texas A&M, Texas A&M had their chance against Alabama. They're nowhere close to having the talent that Notre Dame has. Yes, they're a little bit close, but Notre Dame is still a better team than Texas A&M. Notre Dame deserves to be in the college football playoffs, whether you guys want to admit it or not. Yes, they lost to Clemson, but they did pull off upset against Clemson. Texas A&M had their chance. At the end of the day, Notre Dame is here for a reason, and they need to show everybody why they're here. If Notre Dame gets blown out, I'll be extremely disappointed. And I don't think Notre Dame will get blown out like a lot of you Alabama fans think that you guys will do to Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame is going to get blown out. I just think that Notre Dame had a bad game against Clemson. They didn't play their best football. Because even with Trevor Lawrence, Clemson is not a 34-10 better team than Notre Dame at the end of the day. Like I said, if Northwestern can push Ohio State and Florida can push Alabama, then it's no excuse why Notre Dame can't push Alabama. I'm not saying Notre Dame is going to win this game. I already showed you on the screen. I'm picking Alabama to win. Roll Tide. But I think that this game should be 38-24 Alabama. And I think that's a pretty... If you're a Notre Dame fan and you lose this game, I think you will be okay. Even though, you wouldn't be happy with your team losing. But I think you could, look at this game and be like, you know what? Yeah, we lost to Alabama. But at least we made this somewhat of a competitive football game. At least we look like we deserve to be considered one of the 4 best teams in America. At least we look like we deserve to be on the field with Alabama. So if Alabama wins this game 38-24, I think you have to give your hats off to Notre Dame. Even if they don't win. I know it's going to be disappointing, but if you're a Notre Dame fan, you should be satisfied. Even though your team lost, you could say that your team looked like they fought and they gave it everything they had. Versus against Clemson, they just didn't look like they deserved to be on the field. So, I'm taking Alabama to win 38-24. I think Notre Dame should be able to give Alabama a little bit of a challenge. I know everybody brings up that national championship game from 2012 when they had, who was the quarterback? Everett Golson, I believe his name was the quarterback for Notre Dame that year. What was he, a redshirt freshman? I don't remember. Notre Dame got ran out the building. We can't go off what the team has done in the past to determine their future. Because at the end of the day, nobody's the same person that they were 10 years ago. Nobody was the same person that they were in 2012 that they are now. Everybody changes. Sometimes people change for the better. Sometimes people change for the worse. But I'm not going to say that Notre Dame doesn't have a chance because of what they've done in the past and their past performances in the college football playoffs. I think it's pretty wrong to say that. Like, a lot of people aren't giving Notre Dame a chance, and everybody's saying Notre Dame's not going to win, and they're not really giving a good argument for why. All you can say is that Alabama's a better football team, and that Alabama blew out Notre Dame in the national championship in 2012. That was 9 years ago, or 7. I don't remember how many years it was, but it's like 2012 is when they last played, and that was a blowout. So I'm not going to say Notre Dame doesn't have a shot at winning this game based on what they did in Alabama 9 years ago in the national championship game. I'm going by what I've seen this season. What I've seen this year is that Notre Dame is a really good team. And at the end of the day, Brian Kelly has to get this team ready, and they have to get this team prepared for this game against Alabama. Because it just looks like against Clemson, Notre Dame just didn't look prepared. It didn't look like they expected Clemson to make adjustments. It's like they expected Clemson to be the same team that they beat a couple of weeks ago, just with Trevor Lawrence and a couple of guys returning as starters. So for Notre Dame, hopefully they can make some adjustments. They should be able to run the football on Alabama, because when you look at how good Alabama's D-line is, yes, their D-line is pretty good, but Notre Dame's offensive line is just too good just to get manhandled up front by Alabama. They have NFL guys who go into the NFL draft really high, and they have guys who on the defense side of football are really good as well. So I think that Notre Dame is good enough to give Alabama a little bit of a challenge to the point that Alabama in the fourth quarter should be able to pull away. So I'm taking Alabama to win 38-24, but I do expect this game, I'm hoping that this game will be competitive. I'm not expecting a blowout. I believe that Notre Dame had an off game against Clemson, and I believe that they're going to look at that game, they're going to look at themselves in the mirror, and they're going to come out with somebody who has something to prove. So is Alabama. I think Notre Dame just had an off game against Clemson. I think that they can, and I think that they are more than capable of competing with Alabama. If Florida can keep up with Alabama, if Northwestern can keep up with Ohio State, then it's no excuse why Notre Dame can't keep up with Alabama. So let me know what you guys think about this game down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more college football videos and NFL videos. Also, make sure that if you haven't already, that you follow me on all of my social media platforms. My Instagram and Twitter is both JTSports_. The link to those are down in the comment section down below. Also, if you guys want to connect with me, ask me any questions, give me any video suggestions, social media on Twitter and the DMs is the best way to reach me. I will also be doing a live tweeting session during this game, giving my thoughts there. If you guys want to be able to check that out, I know a lot of you guys enjoy that. But yeah, make sure that you guys like the video, share on your social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram with your friends, family, acquaintances, co-workers, whoever is a fan of college football and the NFL in general.